Do you have to copyright your cues before submitting to a library? How do you communicate hope or tension? What's the deal with NFTs? How doable is it to make six-figure income or even $50,000 a year? How do you find libraries? Do you need to have an IMDb profile? Will royalties go away? What about LUFs and loudness? Well, I'm going to answer these questions and more on a special quickfire Q&A episode of my weekly vlog. We're also going to be checking out a happy ukulele cue, which uses the ukulele as a percussion instrument. So if you're interested in that, stick around for my week 16 check-in. What is happening, YouTube? This is Dave Croft. Welcome back to another 52 Cues vlog. This is where every week I take a look at a cue that I wrote in the week before and also talk about industry things, industry topics, things that are going on in my life or things that are happening just in production music, maybe some questions. And that's what we're going to be doing today. I recently asked the 52 Cues Facebook group, do they have any questions about production music? And I got a lot of questions, and I figured it would be good to take one of my vlog entries and just kind of do a quick fire Q&A session on those. So that's what we're going to be doing today. The cue that you're listening to right now is called Let's Be Friends, and it was inspired by Jack White's We're Gonna Be Friends, which I recently was reintroduced to during my listening of the Conan O'Brien, Conan Needs a Friend podcast. He uses that as the theme, and that really got my juices flowing. And so we're going to be looking at a deep dive into that cue, and that includes some interesting use of the ukulele body as a percussion instrument. So what you're hearing right now, the shaker, the kick, the snare, that's all just ukulele effects. So if you want to just skip over the Q&A and go right into the breakdown, you can do so by clicking the link in the description below. But before we get started, I want to give a special shout out to my Patreon patrons who every week support me. They actually give their real life money to make sure that this channel happens, and as a Patreon patron, they also get access to my weekly live streams. I do a live stream of production music every single week, usually every Thursday, sometimes multiple times a week, and start with a blank slate, and they can watch me produce that music. So lots of conversations. It's a really happening chat, and so I really, really appreciate those guys. And also, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe the video. All those things that every YouTube host asks you to do. The reality is that it helps composers just like you find this video. So if you like it, and if you want to see more of it, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You know, at first I said all that ironically, but considering how the YouTube algorithm works and all of that, it's really, really, really helpful. So like I said, recently I posted a question up on the 52 Cues Facebook group. What are some things you'd like to know more about regarding production music, any specific types of cue, industry practices, and the like? And we got a bunch of questions, and I'm just going to kind of answer these quick fire style. And if I don't know something, then I'm going to say, I don't know. So Donnie Wayne Smith asks, do you have to copyright cues before submission, or is that part of the process? In general, publishers and libraries need legal control over your music. And so they're actually going to copyright it, especially if it's an exclusive cue, exclusive with that library. They're going to assume copyright, which sounds big and scary, but just remember that copyright isn't who owns it necessarily as much as it is who owns the right to do something with that. And libraries tend to need the legal standing to be able to represent your music and sign sync license deals for you. Donnie also asks, when you use descriptors like tension, hope, does that mean a particular setting or of a key? Is hope mixolydian, or is tension always dissonant? Well, the way that works for me, the way I think about it is that mood or emotion is communicated through three main aspects, that being harmonic aspects, rhythmic aspects, and textural aspects, meaning the instrumentation. So harmony with production music, as tropey as it sounds, happy, major, sad, minor. And then everything in between, like what does intrigue mean? Well, that's like a twinge of minor, but not really super dissonant. And something that's scary or horror is going to be even more dissonant. And then rhythmically, like what's the rhythmic difference between uplifting and inspirational? Well, uplifting might be a little bit more energetic. It might be a faster tempo, whereas inspirational is going to be maybe a slower tempo, and maybe some percussion or kind of building eighth notes, versus hopeful or joyful might be faster with more rhythmic energy happening. And then the sounds that you choose. If you're writing something that is melancholic or sad, then you don't want to bring like a piccolo trumpet to the table. Well, I guess maybe if you're playing taps or something like that. But the instrumentation goes a long way to helping to communicate what mood you are going for as well. Certain instruments like intrigue, back to that one, marimbas, pianos, those are very kind of intriguey, and I think we have Thomas Newman to thank for that. But something that would sound childlike, for example, like ukulele, glockenspiel, these types of instruments just evoke certain emotional responses. So yeah. And in Logic, can you click the tempo setting and then tap T instead of using the Dr. Beat? The Dr. Beat being the little the app that I use for my tap tempo. The only place that you can really get away with creating you can only get away with tap tempo is when you create a new track. And I about don't want to do it here because I've got my session pulled up. But there is a tap tempo option when you create a new track, and well, let me do that. I just won't. Don't close, and you can tap tempo here. As far as I know, that's the only place to tap tempo in Logic. That's the only place that I know of where you can tap tempo. There might be others, and to be honest, it's not great. And I have much better results by using an app or just using it like a phone app. I use Tempo. It's a phone app, and it works really really well. Patrick asks, "What are my thoughts on NFTs?" NFTs completely bewilder me. I have no idea really, and I feel like I got my brain around Bitcoin, and I know it's something to do with that. But I would love to hear your thoughts, YouTube populace. What's the deal with NFTs? As far as I know, it's a way to get a digital original, but I I have yet to really understand the value of that. And then you hear that these are going for completely astronomical amounts of money, and I do not get it. And so I'm feeling really old. I'm not 50 years old yet, but I'm getting there, and I just feel like there's enough gray in my beard to betray the fact that NFTs, I don't know, it's really a buzzy thing right now, but I feel like I don't know, I've got Bitcoin vibes, man. Like it's gonna overinflate and then crash. Patrick also asks, how many tracks, including alt mixes, do you have in libraries? I don't include alt mixes as far as because they're just cut downs and different versions and alts. I have about 400 tracks that are published through various libraries. My goal is 1,000, and I've been really pushing hard in on this about 6 or 7 years. But my goal is 1,000. I'm about 400, and with my mass output coming within the last 3 to 4 years, as I really push into the industry. The 1,000 tracks, that idea came from taxi interview. The 5 years and 1,000 tracks. People who are doing this full time, that's really what they're looking for. Also goes on to ask, how doable is it to make a six-figure income with library music? It is definitely doable, but it takes time. It's a game of nickels most of the time, and what you're really looking for, you're probably not going to get like a big theme song that's going to air every week on a primetime show. With library music, those are usually custom gigs and that kind of thing. I will say I have gotten five-figure royalty checks before, and that's you get enough of those, but I've also gotten a royalty check for 41 cents. So and everything in between. And it's super spiky for me because I do a lot of stuff in sports. That means that those sports seasons, which are spiky, like the PGA and the NFL, those are very, very specific areas of time. And because that's the bulk of my royalties are coming through sports broadcasting, that means that it's really super spiky for me. Is it doable? Absolutely. Is it doable to make 50,000? It's even more doable for that. But it just takes time, patience, dedication. The first couple of years, you're learning the craft. You're learning how to write production music and what libraries are looking for, and it can be really discouraging. I was very fortunate that my first writing was for the very first thing I wrote for was for the NCAA tournament, and then I got no plays at all, and that was super discouraging because I was really, really geeked out about it, and I had recorded all the games and I scanned all the games looking for my music, but no, I didn't get any air, and those tracks didn't even make air until 3 or 4 years later. Then I got a couple of plays on the Masters tournament, and then things started to really pick up for football that following season, and even that was, a year after writing and trying and putting stuff out there. And so, it's very doable. It just takes time. I would bank on 5 years and as far as that snowball getting rolling in order for you to be able to make a living, in this industry. But it's very competitive, but there's also a ton of opportunity. He goes on to say 3 tracks a day is needed for full-time income. 3 tracks a day would be an insane output. And I don't know how that's sustainable long term. I couldn't do it. I feel good about 3 tracks a week. And there are times when I'm under the gun and I'm really writing a lot, but 3 tracks a day would be an insane output, and I think you would burn yourself out, and you probably, I'm guessing, would not be making the best music. What is full time considered? One of my friends who does game music, Jason Graves. I went to college with him. Awesome friend, a good guy. He did Dead Space, Order 1886, those types of games. And his goal is 2 finished minutes of music a day per 8-hour workday. And he works 5 days a week. He takes the weekends off to spend time with his family. I mean, this is a job, and it's very, very, very regimented. And so that's kind of one of my goals is 2 minutes of finished music, but that doesn't always happen, and it really depends on what's going on. Do I layer drums, and is it necessary? Are you talking about acoustic drums? If you're talking about acoustic drum set, usually not really, but for like epic percussion, all the time. Damage plus, some other heaviosity stuff, and that usually layered is what gives you that really big, dense, epic sound. How do I start each song? I usually start my cues with a harmonic structure, a skeleton, some sort of harmonic structure, because with my background in jazz and most notably learning how to do jazz improvisation, that's all reactive to the harmonic structure. Jazz improv is just spontaneous melodic composition reacting to harmonic language. And so for me, I feel like I do my best work when I am writing if I have an entire harmonic structure in place, and then the melodies come relatively easy after that. No, not too overwhelming at all. Thank you very much. Charles asks, how do you find your first library to submit cues? Um, this is where I find Taxi to be really, really helpful because they can not only connect you with libraries and editors who are looking for composers, and they're looking for submissions into their library, but they also give you feedback. And the community, the forums are super helpful, really super helpful and friendly. And I am a believer in Taxi. I'm not sponsored by them. I don't know any of these people personally, and I treat it like an A&R service. It's like you would pay for a publicist or pay for a manager or something like that. But you pay your $5 per submission and you pay your yearly fee, but they don't get a percentage of anything that makes air. So if you get a relationship, if you submit, I'll just tell you an example that happened for me. I submitted 3 Qs in for a search, and the library contacted me. They said, "Yes, I want those. Can you do like 9 more?" And so I ended up doing an album of 12 Qs. I believe it was 12. And Taxi didn't get any additional fees because once the connection is made, once you make that relationship connection with the library, then Taxi is out of the picture. And so I find Taxi to be super helpful. I talked about it in a previous video where I said, how do you land a publisher? And I think Taxi is really, really great at doing that. As long as you approach it as I am not looking to I don't use Taxi to make money. I use Taxi to cultivate relationships because I don't live in LA, right? I can't just, I can't go out and do all this. And especially, now with pandemic and everything like that. Michael asks, do you find it essential to have an IMDb profile? Is it essential? No. Is it helpful? Absolutely. Does it feel professionally validating to list out IMDb credits? You bet your butt. I enjoy that aspect. It's I don't know, maybe it's ego or vanity or whatever, but no, I enjoy it. And um I think libraries look at that stuff. I think if they see somebody with an IMDb profile and getting that and seeing that, well, there are credits, then I think that's helpful. Getting started, that can be kind of tough, as when because you don't have many credits, and so it's like you need credits to get credits, and it's that kind of catch 22. How do you go best about starting one? Um, I I think I created an account, and then once you get placed, then you add yourself as a credit to that to that show. And I should walk you guys through that. That should be a video that I do. I should make a note of this as I'm pulling things up. I should make a notes to IMDb, how to do an IMDb edit. Yep, we'll do that. Mark asks, when will royalties go away? I don't think royalties will go away, but there is a trend in the industry where publishers are asking for more and more buyouts, and that's a little scary, and we have to avoid a race to the bottom. Now, that having been said, I don't think it's an absolute. I don't think it's an always this or always that. There are some times where buyouts are a good deal, especially if you're looking to cultivate a relationship. I did some work for Disney, and it was a buyout. And yeah, I'll take a buyout to get my foot in the door at Disney, right? Um, but I've also done other projects where I've given some of my writer's share to the publisher because it was better to help cultivate that relationship, and it was a better investment in the long term than an absolute. It's just like, no, never. Right now, if a publisher comes at you and they want to get in on your writer share and they're taking publishing share, that's really, really strange. The reason that I this other deal happened was because the publisher I was working with wasn't getting publisher share, and so yeah, so that royalties will go away when that part of the market and everybody is on buyout. But I think that's a long time away. I don't think like AI is here to steal our jobs or anything like that. And so yeah. Enrico asks, what levels do you master for submissions to libraries? It's so wildly inconsistent across libraries. I have one library that wants me to do like minus 10 lufs, minus 12 lufs. If I don't get any feedback, if they don't say, or even if I ask, they just said shrug and say, oh, it doesn't matter, then I usually shoot between 14 or 16, minus 16 lufs. That's really what I'm going for. Yeah, it's basically the streaming standard. It's around 15, 16 LUFS or so. Patrick says he goes to -12 and then -10. And so, yeah, -12 is not unusual at all. I had a lot of the sports stuff is really, really, really loud. Really, really loud. Dave asks, it'd be interesting to know my path to the industry. My path to the industry was really when I moved to Florida. Then I started working at Full Sail, and I was just putting my music up on SoundCloud. I like to do like trip hop and lo-fi stuff, EDM, because I was kind of an EDM lo-fi trip hop DJ back in Memphis, and so that's what I enjoyed doing. But that was a blend of kind of jazz, which is my background. My master's is in jazz performance on drum set and vibraphone, and so I also liked hip hop, and so that was kind of a merging of that. And there was a group of composers who were writing specifically for a publisher for CBS Sports. Excuse me. And that group of composers kind of had this not a vacancy, but they were looking to fill out their roster with various styles and composers who can do certain things really well. There was a composer who was a really good kind of songwriter. There was a composer who did metal. There was another composer who did like chip tunes, and there was another composer who could do the epic sweeping film score stuff. But they didn't really have anybody that could kind of cover the hip hop side of things. And so they had heard my stuff on SoundCloud. I don't really know how they got that link, but they had heard my name because I was a new hire at Full Sail, and they checked it out and they said, "Hey, do you want to write for the NFL?" And I'm like, yes, absolutely." And so that's what got me kind of into the industry. Now, I had heard about library music years and years and years ago, long before the internet, and it was like making music for CD, and you put it up all on CD. But that part has dramatically changed over the years. Rayborn asks, is it more important to find one or two good libraries to work with, or should you diversify? I think if you are starting out, I think it's good to kind of spread it out to just cast a wide net. And then once one library starts getting traction, meaning you start getting played, then you still want to kind of keep fishing and keep your net out, but you're going to keep going back to the spot where you know things are biting. And so it would, in my opinion, it would be foolish not to feed the library who's getting you air. I think that would be foolish. The challenge becomes, and where I'm at kind of personally right now, and professionally, I guess I should say, is I'm working with a couple of libraries, which keep me so busy where I'm needing to give them 2, 3, sometimes 4 cues a week, just really depending, that it's hard to kind of cast that net. And then when I do have some downtime, kind of the last thing I want to do is spend more time in the studio because I'm just creatively wrung out. So that's where I'm at right now. I know I need to diversify because what happens if that publisher loses their contract with a big client or something, or what happens if the show gets canceled, or what happens if I don't know, they just decide, hey, I'm going to shut down, or you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket. So I'm always looking to diversify, but you have to balance that. I had reached out and started putting some feelers out for a library that turned out to be a direct competitor with another library I was with. And I kind of stepped back from that. They wanted the music, they wanted all of that, but I was really conscious about not wanting to burn that relationship with the other library. I mean, they were direct competitors, and it felt like my spidey sense was tingling, like it was going to be a conflict of interest, and I didn't want to give library B, less of an effort, right? That's not fair to them, and I wasn't going to give them my scraps or my whatever. But the last thing I wanted was for the cue sheets to come down, and library A sees placements, they see my name with multiple placements, because that means that that's a cue that I could have given library A, and publisher A that could have gotten placed, but it didn't. It got placed with library B, and that means that library A misses out on those publishing royalties. And it's just, ugh. So not that it was political, but I was really, really conscious of that. And then finally, Richard asks, it's not too late to post. Thanks. Thinking about carving out the EQs to aid in clarity separation. I use a concept called complementary EQ curves. And hey, there is my backblaze. Use complementary EQ curves, which is where you treat the EQs kind of like different puzzle pieces. You have like piece A and piece B, and they have to kind of snap together. And so if you're looking at the low end, you're going to cut the low end out of one sound, but keep the low end in the other sound. But then where the low end's coming through and the sound that you cut out, you're going to notch the others between those. And so it's called complementary EQ curves. And that was oh, I forget. It was, I think I picked it up like on a Linda tutorial, talking about mixing and EQing, and he talked about complementary EQ curves. Essentially, if you have two sounds which are in danger of creating frequency masking issues, then you create like kind of puzzle pieces. So you cut a little bit out of here, notch a little bit, and then they kind of fit together. You're really extreme, or I'm really extreme on the low end, and then I get more subtle as I move up the frequency spectrum, because there are just mathematically more ways for high frequencies to mesh and blend together than there are for low frequencies. So I think that's it. I think those are all the questions, guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to do another one of these coming up here pretty soon, but I really, really appreciated the questions. And if you're still sticking around, or if you're not a member of the 52Qs Facebook group, there's a link in the description below. We would love to have you. Every week we post a picture thread and a post to where you can go and post your cues. There's always feedback. People are going to listen to it and give you their thoughts. So without further ado, let's now check out Let's Be Friends, and that's going to take us into our cue breakdown. So that is Let's Be Friends. And in case you were wondering and thinking, did I hear a yes? Yes, you did. I'll talk about that here in a second. So starts off with whirly bass, keyscape. And I got to tell you, keyscape, I've been not so... I've got issues with the piano and some overtones and some weird things happening there, but man, it has more than made up for it with their whirly and their electric piano sounds. And so we start off just with the really simple bass. I mean, it's just octaves. That's all it is. And with these whirly chords. Now, it's really important when you're playing these types of cues, these really organic, super exposed, not to over quantize. And so things are quantized, and then I'll kind of ease it up a little bit. And so I took a pass of just laying down the chords, and then my melody is also a whirly melody. Now, I did kind of overlap them a little bit, so I had to be careful that it didn't sound like, two players, right? Which this would be really tough to play with one hand, I guess, or yeah, especially if your left hand is playing bass and your right hand's playing that. But I imagine that there is a whirly player out who is good enough to do that. All right, and so really, really simple. And then I jump up the octave here as things kind of move on. Then I end the cue with the melody back down the octave. Really, really simple melody. Really simple melody. And it's my hope that it would be like an earworm. Like if you can walk away singing this melody, then I've done my job. And those are just really easy keyboard technique where you just kind of slide the finger up, right? It's nothing really fancy. Or you can kind of skip the kind of grace note action. That's all that is happening. All right, so let's look at the uke. A couple of different uke layers. This is my concert ukulele, which I have double tracked. So I have a layer on the left and a layer on a right, just playing back and forth, kind of a double time version of this eighth notes action. And then the tenor, who is single mono mic'd but with a sample delay, and that creates that fake. Right. So between the two. So it kind of sounds like one player kind of, and I'm just not good enough to do this, right? It's like one player thumbing and then pulling, but I really can't do that because I'm not a guitarist. So I layered it to kind of give the illusion of that happening. Really super simple. I mentioned on the Facebook post, because I posted this in the weekly thread, this is a real exercise in restraint. Which that whole song, We're Gonna Be Friends, it was the opening credits, I believe, for Napoleon Dynamite. It's just a really cool, really very sweet song. And then let's get into our percussion effects. So I've got kind of this uke tap where I'm tapping. I don't have my ukulele. I'm tapping the top of no, this is the bottom of the body, underneath the neck. So tapping off beats, not to get too busy. And then I have a high tap, which is above the neck. So I have below the neck, off beats, 2 and 4 on my high tap. And then the ukulele kick is this guy down here. All right, and then finally, the brushes. These aren't brushes. This is me just wiping the body. And I did double track it. And I did throw some light flex time quantization there, just to tighten it up. And so all together, the percussion and then context. And then finally, these little pops. These are quite literally me going. That's all it is. Just And the reason is I was listening to it and I thought, did did I did I hear that? Like I imagined, and it was probably just something with some of the tapping, or so it just sounded like popping. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to just throw those in? So I thought they turned out really, really well, and I did make an alternate version of it, a stem, when I submitted it to the library. I did do an alternate version that did not have those pops, just to be safe. If if it was going to get used, I didn't want the pops. I didn't want those to be deal breakers in the end. So that is Let's Be Friends. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've enjoyed these videos. Thank you so much for hanging around. It's hard to believe we're already getting into week 17 of 2021. How many cues have you written? How has that been going for you? Are you able to write 3 cues a day, or maybe 3 cues a week, or maybe just 1 cue a week? And that's our goal here at 52 Cues, and what we're doing on the Facebook group and everything is writing at least 1 cue per week. And by doing that, that's going to really help get your career going. Once again, I want to thank my patrons who have continued to support the channel. If that is something you are interested in, the information is below. There's no fancy tiers. It's just $1. And so if you want to be a patron, you can join us also in our weekly live stream, ask all kinds of questions. And it's a super interactive event. And also, if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, notification bell, all that YouTube business. But that's going to do it for me this week. I hope you have an amazing week 17, but until next time, peace.